Welcome back to the channel, fight fans. Today we're diving deep into the dark side of the octagon, exploring the stories of 7 fighters who have become some of the most hated figures in UFC history. These athletes have sparked controversy, ignited feuds, and fueled intense debates among fans. But what made them so polarizing? Why did the public turn on them? And how did their actions inside and outside the cage cement their status as the most reviled fighters in the sport? Stick around, because this is going to be a wild ride. The UFC has always been about more than just fighting. It's a stage where personalities clash, egos flare, and rivalries explode. Some fighters become legends for their skills and sportsmanship, while others become infamous for their antics and controversies. Today, we're taking a closer look at 7 fighters who've managed to do both, becoming some of the most hated figures in UFC history. Let's start with the man who helped put the UFC on the map. Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy of the UFC. Tito Ortiz is one of the original bad boys of the UFC. Known for his brash personality, over-the-top celebrations, and relentless trash talk, Ortiz quickly became a polarizing figure. But his antics weren't just for show. They were part of a calculated strategy to get inside his opponents' heads and sell fights. While this made him a fan favorite for some, it also earned him a legion of detractors. Let's dive into the incidents that cemented Tito Ortiz as one of the most hated fighters in UFC history. First, there was his infamous feud with Ken Shamrock. The rivalry was fueled by personal animosity and Ortiz's relentless verbal attacks. Tito's post-fight celebration after defeating Shamrock, where he mocked his downed opponent, was seen as a blatant display of disrespect, and it didn't sit well with many fans or fighters. When it comes to UFC villains, Josh Koscheck is a name that stands out. Koscheck's career was marked by his undeniable talent and relentless trash talk, but it was his actions both inside and outside the octagon that made him one of the most hated figures in MMA history. Incidents that solidified Koscheck's reputation as the UFC's ultimate villain. Josh Koscheck was never one to shy away from conflict. From the moment he stepped into the UFC, he embraced the role of the bad guy, and fans were more than happy to cast him in that role. But there were a few key moments that took Koscheck's villain status to the next level. First up, we have his infamous rivalry with Georges St-Pierre. During the lead-up to their fight at UFC 124, Koscheck went out of his way to antagonize GSP, mocking him at every opportunity and even making disparaging remarks about GSP's home country of Canada. Koscheck's trash talk was relentless, and it only intensified as the fight drew closer. Koscheck's trash talk didn't just get under GSP's skin. It infuriated the entire Canadian fan base. The fight itself was a one-sided affair, with GSP dominating Koscheck for 5 rounds. But what made Koscheck truly despised was his refusal to give GSP any credit after the fight, continuing to run his mouth despite being thoroughly outclassed. It was a move that cemented his status as a fighter fans loved to hate. Next, there's Koscheck's infamous fake injury against Paul Daly at UFC 113. During their fight, Koscheck was grazed by Daly's knee while he was on the ground. Instead of continuing, Koscheck grabbed his face and pretended he'd been hit with an illegal knee, trying to get Daly disqualified. The replay showed there was no significant contact, and fans were furious at Koscheck's attempt to manipulate the outcome of the fight. Ronda Rousey. From superstar to villain. Next, we turn our attention to Ronda Rousey, a fighter who revolutionized women's MMA and became a global superstar, but who also became one of the sport's most divisive figures. Ronda Rousey was the UFC's first female champion and a trailblazer for women's MMA. Her armbar submissions and quick finishes made her a sensation, and for a time she was the face of the UFC. But as her star rose, so did the backlash. Rousey's brash attitude, refusal to touch gloves before fights, and often dismissive comments about her opponents made her a polarizing figure. Let's break down key incidents that contributed to Ronda Rousey's fall from grace. First, There was her notorious feud with Miesha Tate. The rivalry was intense, with Rousey consistently disrespecting Tate both before and after their fights. Her refusal to shake Tate's hand after their second fight, despite Tate showing sportsmanship, was seen as a major breach of fighter etiquette and turned many fans against her. Then there was her shocking loss to Holly Holm. Rousey had been undefeated and seemingly unstoppable, but Holm exposed her striking weaknesses and knocked her out in devastating fashion. What followed was months of silence from Rousey, who disappeared from the public eye, fueling speculation about her mental state and resilience. When she finally returned, her dismissive attitude towards the media and fans during her comeback fight against Amanda Nunes didn't do her any favors. And finally, Rousey's behavior after her loss to Nunes sealed her fate as a controversial figure. She refused to speak to the media and quickly exited the sport without addressing her fans or acknowledging her opponent's victory. Moving on, we come to Colby Covington, a fighter who has embraced the role of the villain like no other. Covington's antics, both in and out of the cage, have made him one of the most hated fighters in the UFC, but also one of the most talked about. Let's explore incidents that have defined Covington's controversial career. The first was his infamous post-fight interview after defeating Demian Maia in Brazil, where he called the Brazilian crowd filthy animals.
Well, Brazil, you're a dog! All you filthy animals suck!
The insult was shocking and instantly made him a target of hate from not just Brazilian fans, but fight fans worldwide who saw it as an unnecessary and disrespectful attack. Then there was his public feud with former teammate and friend Jorge Masvidal. Covington's betrayal of Masvidal, combined with his relentless trash talk, turned the two into bitter enemies. The feud escalated to the point where they almost came to blows outside the octagon, further fueling Covington's image as a fighter who thrives on conflict and controversy. And who could forget Covington's relentless verbal attacks on Kamaru Usman? Covington's trash talk went beyond the usual pre-fight banter, delving into personal and racially charged territory. His comments were seen as crossing the line and alienated many fans who felt that Covington's rhetoric was not only inappropriate but harmful to the sport's image. Colby Covington's willingness to play the villain has made him one of the most hated fighters in UFC history. But it's also made him one of the most marketable, proving that in the fight game, controversy sells. Next up is Belal Muhammad, a fighter who has been steadily climbing the ranks but has managed to attract a fair share of controversy along the way. Muhammad's fighting style, combined with his outspoken personality, has made him a divisive figure among fans. Belal Muhammad isn't known for being flashy or controversial, but his actions and words have still managed to put him at odds with fans and fellow fighters alike. Let's dive into 3 incidents that have contributed to Muhammad's polarizing reputation. The first was his controversial fight against Leon Edwards. The fight ended in a no contest due to an accidental eye poke from Edwards that left Muhammad unable to continue. While the incident wasn't Muhammad's fault, his reaction afterwards, calling for an immediate rematch and questioning Edwards' legitimacy as a contender, rubbed many fans the wrong way, leading to accusations that Muhammad was trying to capitalize on an unfortunate situation. Then there's Muhammad's outspoken nature on social media. He's never been shy about voicing his opinions, whether it's calling out fighters, criticizing the UFC's matchmaking, or engaging in heated exchanges with fans. While some appreciate his honesty, others see it as a sign of arrogance and a lack of respect for his peers. And finally, Muhammad's fighting style has been a point of contention for many fans. Known for his grinding, decision-heavy wins, some fans have labeled him as boring, which has only added to the negativity surrounding his career. Despite his success, Muhammad has struggled to win over fans who prefer more explosive, finish-oriented fighters. Belal Muhammad's rise to the top has been anything but smooth. His controversies, both inside and outside the cage, have made him a fighter that fans love to hate, but also one they can't ignore. Moving on, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov, a fighter who went undefeated in the UFC and retired as one of the greatest champions in the sport's history. But despite his success, Khabib's career was not without controversy. Khabib Nurmagomedov was a force of nature in the octagon. His wrestling was unmatched, and his dominance was unquestionable. But it was his actions outside the cage that often overshadowed his achievements inside it. There was the infamous post-fight brawl after Khabib defeated Conor McGregor at UFC 229. Instead of celebrating his victory, Khabib leapt out of the cage and attacked McGregor's cornerman, sparking a massive melee that spilled into the crowd. The incident shocked the world and led to widespread condemnation, with many fans viewing Khabib's actions as a stain on the sport. Next, there's Khabib's ongoing feud with the McGregor camp. The rivalry was one of the most intense in UFC history, with both sides exchanging personal insults and threats. Khabib's refusal to shake McGregor's hand after their fight, combined with his harsh words for McGregor's team, cemented his image as a fighter who held grudges and didn't forgive easily. Khabib Nurmagomedov's legacy is one of dominance and discipline, but also of controversy and conflict. His actions both in and out of the cage have made him a figure that fans either revere or revile. No list of controversial fighters would be complete without Conor McGregor, the most notorious figure in MMA history. McGregor's rise to superstardom was meteoric, but so were the controversies that followed him. Conor McGregor is a fighter who needs no introduction. His charisma, trash talk, and knockout power made him the biggest star the UFC has ever seen. But with fame came infamy, and McGregor's career has been marred by scandal after scandal. Let's explore incidents that have defined McGregor's controversial legacy. First, there was the infamous bus attack before UFC 223. McGregor, enraged by comments made by Khabib Nurmagomedov, stormed the event with his entourage and threw a dolly through a bus window, injuring multiple fighters. The attack was caught on camera and led to McGregor's arrest, painting him as a dangerous and reckless figure. Then there was his outburst at the UFC 229 press conference, where McGregor insulted Khabib's religion, family, and country. The comments were seen as deeply offensive and crossed a line that many felt should never be crossed in the fight game. The press conference set the stage for one of the most heated and controversial fights in UFC history. These incidents have tarnished his image and led many fans to question whether his fame and fortune have gotten the better of him. Conor McGregor's career is a roller coaster of triumph and controversy. He's a fighter who has reached the highest highs and the lowest lows, making him one of the most loved and hated figures in the sport. And last but certainly not least, we have Jon Jones, a fighter whose talent is undeniable, but whose career has been plagued by scandals and controversy. Jon Jones is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters in MMA history, but his career has been overshadowed by a series of incidents that have made him one of the most controversial figures in the sport. Let's examine 3 key moments that have defined Jon Jones's tumultuous career. First, there was the hit-and-run incident in 2015, where Jones fled the scene of a car accident that he caused, leaving a pregnant woman injured. The incident led to his suspension from the UFC and stripped him of his title. It was a shocking fall from grace for a fighter who was at the peak of his career. Next, there were Jones's multiple failed drug tests, including testing positive for banned substances before his rematch with Daniel Cormier. The failed tests not only cost Jones his title again, but also led to widespread condemnation from fans and fighters alike. The repeated infractions raised serious questions about Jones's commitment to the sport and his ability to stay clean. And finally, there's Jones's ongoing legal troubles and public outbursts. From DUI arrests to altercations with law enforcement, Jones's personal life has been a mess, and it's had a profound impact on his career. Each incident has eroded the trust and admiration that fans once had for him, leaving many to wonder if Jones will ever be able to get his life back on track. Jon Jones's career is a tale of wasted potential and unfulfilled greatness. He's a fighter who could have been the greatest of all time, but his self-destructive behavior has made him one of the most controversial and polarizing figures in UFC history. And there you have it. Fight fans, 8 of the most hated fighters in UFC history. Each of these fighters has left a mark on the sport, but not always for the right reasons. Whether it's through their actions inside the cage, their words outside of it, or their personal lives, they've all managed to stir up controversy and provoke strong reactions from fans and peers alike. But love them or hate them, these fighters have played a crucial role in making the UFC what it is today. A sport where drama, controversy, and conflict are just as much a part of the story as the fights themselves. So, who do you think is the most hated fighter in UFC history? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, keep your guard up and your chin down. This is MMA Flix 360 signing off.